It's my time, it's my season, and I've got a good reason to open my mouth. Gonna let it out, open your mind, grab your friend. I hope you listen to the end. The vibe is good and learning meets on She Who Speaks. Hi, and welcome to another episode of She Who Speaks. I'm Renee, lover of a good laugh and all things behavioral. With me, we have Marilyn. She's unassuming with a good listening ear. And we have the unstoppable force with a angelic voice, which is Love Min. Together, we are She Who Speaks, and we're so delighted that you are here with us. Before we get started, if this is your first time, welcome. If you enjoy our content, we ask that you would give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can always be in the know when we have new content coming out. And then just drop some comments and give us your feedback. We would love to hear what you think. For those who are returning viewers, we are so appreciative of your support. Thank you for keeping that coming. And remember to also like and comment. And if you have not yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? Subscribe. So, ladies, I'm always excited to talk to you. Um, Today, we're going to have something fun for our viewers, but we won't say what that is yet. First, we want to talk about something that I know has been a fun topic. Marilyn, especially, likes this topic. So, tell us what it is, Marilyn.
So, as a lot of you know, this month we are going to celebrate International Women's Day. And in tribute to that awesome event, we would like to discuss women in position of power. So,
Mm.
and one of the women that we are proud to have as a woman in power right now is our brand new VP, Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I mispronounce it.
No,
I'm sorry if she sees it. I'm sorry.
no, you did good, girl. You did good.
So so yeah, she's our brand new VP, and if I'm not mistaken, she's the first woman
Yes,
and
she.
also the first woman of color,
Yes,
Mhm.
African American and Asian descent to be in that position. Renee, she has some roots in Jamaica. Hey,
Oh,
Hey, I'm excited.
so it's yes, it's good to see that happen, to be a witness of that. So, what do you ladies think about women being a position of such a position of power? Do you think that women should not? Is there some occupations that women should not or cannot handle?
well, I think I grew up with this idea that there was some position that was not meant for a woman. I rarely seen a woman as a pilot. Yes, they can be doctor, nurse, maybe lawyer, which is still
Sure.
good. But there's some job that I guess unconsciously, especially VP, not that I question that we were capable of. It was just something that I grew up seeing in my environment or on TV or yes, TV. That was the main mean of communication, of media. So I'm happy because I have a daughter, and I think she's growing up in a different environment, a different history. For her, it won't be extraordinary to see a VP president because it's a part as a little American. It's just a part of her history. The same for your boys. That it's a different topic, but the fact that we had a black president now is nothing. It's not exceptional. because at least in the history they've seen it. So to go back on, so I grew up with the idea in I'm being honest, where
Yeah.
indeed some job was not meant for women, but I'm glad to be to live in this era where it's
Mhm.
changing, and we see women in such high position. What about you, Renee?
Yeah, same, same. And exactly what you just said. And if I could even kind of stroke the topic a little by saying, I even heard that even managerial positions that women aren't the best bosses,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that they're hard to work with or hard to work for.
Mm.
And oh Lord, they're so emotional.
Yeah.
Um, and there have been times, I'm being honest, where I have experienced that. But I feel like because, like Loveman said, we grew up hearing that our role as women were only in these little
But
slithers of different occupations. I feel like we come into a lot of roles sometimes with a chip
mm-hmm.
on our shoulder, feeling like we have to try harder, be tougher. A man can be like uh, bossy and he's powerful, and a woman can be bossy and she's a, the not nice word that they call them. So it's just not a level playing field. And so I feel like because of that, the negative connotations and the negative experiences come from that. I don't think that there's anything that a woman cannot do.
Yeah.
I think she can do anything that she puts her mind to. And I'm really excited, like Loveman said, for little girls all over the world to be able to look up and see in the very highest level, among the highest positions of power, women.
Mm.
So to me, that's exciting.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
it is. It is. And just as Lovemin said, for us, the fact that there was a lack of representation in those roles has shaped our way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why it's so needed to have women in this kind of position so that our children can dream and we can stop uh, um, putting label on people like women should be here and men should be that.
Yeah,
So I feel like it's so exciting. It's so exciting to see that changing right before our eyes. And yeah, I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for all the work that she's going to do. And I'm
me
glad
too.
that they gave her that chance to prove that women can and should be in those kind of positions.
I agree. But so if you're viewing, tell us before we get into our topic, tell us, what do you think? Is there a position that women should not lead? Even if you don't agree, perhaps culturally, was that what you were taught? We're interested to know. Let us know what culture you're
Don't be
representing
shy.
to.
Don't be shy and
Don't
don't
be
Yeah.
feel
shy.
You won't be
don't feel
judged. It's a safe
pressure.
place.
Safe
Yeah.
space, no judgment. This
Mm-hmm.
is the one chance you get to rep your entire nation. So tell us what your whole nation, just kidding. Just tell us what you grew up knowing about. But this is an exciting segue because
Hmm.
today we are talking about women in power, but in a different context. We're talking about women in ministry.
Mm.
And of course, we couldn't talk about that topic without actually bringing some of our sisters in ministry. So there's going to be a lot of women on your screen. So be ready. When women are together, we get excited. We talk a lot. So we're
Uh-huh.
going to try to see if we can control our excitement, but
Yes,
we'll
that's
see how
our
it goes.
today.
Um, and as they're
Yay.
coming in, I'm super excited.
Hey, we
Mm-hmm.
So
are.
I'm going to tell you what their names are, and then I'm going to ask them to tell you a little bit about themselves and what area or what space they occupy in ministry, as Miss Kayla unmutes herself, and then Miss Taylor. Ladies, we'll go with, let's go from the bottom. Taylor, tell us what role you currently occupy in ministry and a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, morning, night to everyone. I feel like I have to cover everything because we're in
Everything.
like
Yes.
so many different time zones right now. But thank you for having me and extending the invitation to me. So I'm happy to be here for me is afternoon. Currently, I serve as the director for mission and spiritual care at Adventist Health, Simi Valley Hospital. I'm a hospital chaplain director. That's just a big, fancy, long title for that. Before getting to Adventist Health, I spent time as a local church pastor as well too.
Awesome.
Okay.
Welcome. We're excited to
Awesome. Let's
talk
go.
to you. Kayla, go ahead. Tell us what you do, girl.
Hi, everyone. Hi, ladies. Same good night, good afternoon, good morning, everything. I am currently an evangelist. I enjoy preaching all over. Now, thanks to COVID, I do it all from the comfort of my own home.
Mm-hmm.
But I chose evangelism. I was going to school for pastoral ministry, but I changed my mind. And so evangelism just allows me to touch and connect with so many more people and not have to worry about having a church home to think about and missing out on being with my members and things of that nature. So I'm a theology student. I have my degree in theology already. I'm an ordained minister. I am currently working on my clinical psychology license. So being able to do family, marriage, and relationship counseling, and my sex therapy license. So being able to help those with an unhealthy addiction or unhealthy repulsion to sex, and being able to help married couples live their best sex lives. So
Come
Yeah.
that's the thing.
You know what? I'm just going to ignore the last part because I immediately want to run down that rabbit hole, but we're not today. We're not going to do that. So, Love Ming, go ahead before I lose it, girl.
So, ladies, so we see that the pulpit is usually tend to be male dominated, and I see we've seen a change like gradually. So I would like to have do you agree with that? Do you see a change that do you see more women involved in ministry, or do you think it's still kind of minimum compared to what can be done? Like, give me your experience on that.
Okay. Okay. So I still feel like it's a good boys club. There's a lot of it. I've seen it. I've gone to school with it. I was at Oakwood for a little bit, and it was a struggle just being a woman and saying you're a theology major, because everybody wants to say, and Taylor, this is no offense to you at all with you being a chaplain, but everybody assumes that when a woman's in theology, oh, you're a chaplain. Like,
Mm,
no, I'm here to be a pastor. And it's like,
mm,
like they look at you different. And it's
mhm,
like, you're not good enough to sit with us type thing. And if you are a pastor, they're going to say, oh, children's pastor. They're going to try and like take what you want or what you desired, and they're going to try and water it down with something. And it's just like, all of us are equal on this, whether I'm a chaplain, whether I'm a Sabbath school teacher, I don't care. I'm here for a theology degree. So who are you to try and tell me that being whatever in the theology department is not good enough? And so with my problem that I had a lot when like I said, I was going for pastoral ministry, I had a lot of people. Oh my gosh, it's more men. I had a lot of female haters too, because they are out there. I just want to tell you that right now. There are a lot of women who hate you going into ministry just as much as men do. And so I still believe it's heavily male dominated.
mhm,
Yes, I see a gradual change. I am 26. I don't
mhm,
see a lot of women coming up after me though, and that worries me. I don't see 15-year-old girls saying I want to be preachers. I don't see 10-year-old girls saying I want to be preachers. I don't even see 21-year-old women saying I want to be preachers. When I took this calling, I was 16. And
mm,
so I don't see women in the Adventist denomination trying to take up the next mantle for me to pass on this baton to. That worries me. It feels like we're a dying breed. Like I said, I'm only 26, and I feel like everywhere I go, I'm still the youngest. And at first, that used to be a compliment. Now I'm insulted, because it's like, what have you done to my fellow ladies to make them not feel like they want to do this too?
Yeah, and I think I think the reality is we have to not necessarily accept, but acknowledge that within, when we talk about the broad spectrum of ministry, it's predominantly always going to be men that will be in this field. It's just, I think it's kind of like the nature of it. That because of the historic, you know, process of things that it has always, been a more male dominated profession to go into. And I'm not saying that like for the right or for the wrong. I think that that's just like kind of like the reality. But I agree with Kayla that oftentimes, and I experienced it, and I have accepted the fact that I will probably always experience some type of ism or prejudice for the rest of my career. And so what, my goal is like, okay, so how do I move and navigate within a field where when I, whether it has been in church ministry or it's been in the hospital healthcare setting, that people perceive, as Kayla has already stated, that you're lower. Like I got it a lot where it was, of course you're doing children's ministry, or of course you're doing women's ministry, type of thing. And to be honest, I this is going to sound bad. I'm not a big children's person until I had my own baby. And then it was like, I kind of really just care about him. Like I'm not, like I'm not into babysitting and doing all that stuff. So it's a way to minimize and put down. And I think that what Kayla has already asserted is that people are discouraged. Women are discouraged. I remember from the time I was like under 10 that I had this passion for, I couldn't quite name all of it, right? But I liked healthcare. I liked science, health sciences, and like what happens to the body. And then I liked and had a passion for theology. And I've always had discussions with my dad growing up about, God and what this means and how a person infuse their beliefs into their, everyday life, and what that means and what that should look like when a person says that they're a Christian, right? And so, and I'm speaking specifically within the Christian faith, not to dismiss any of the other faiths, but I grew up from a Christian background. And I remember seeing the fighting and the nasty things that people who carry the name of being Christians will say, and about women going into ministry, that it's an abomination, it's a sin, disparaging. And I remember I had to do my high school career project, and you have to pick like the top 10 careers that you would be interested in. And I originally did want to be a neonatal surgeon. So that was number one. And then number two was being a pastor. And then number three was being an architect. Because I just love like homes and things like that. Neither here nor there. But anyway, but it was assumed like, oh, you're not, you can't really do this and that type of thing. And I think that when you get discouraged, when you're a teenager, when you're a young adult, you oftentimes won't necessarily speak up and say, oh, that's something that I want to go into, right? Because you see opposition, you see challenge, and you have to decide within yourself and have like your own internal fortitude to say, no, that's really what I want to do. And when I personally made that decision of this is really what I want to do, it was unfortunate. I had more women come up to me and have negative things to say, which caught me by surprise, than I have sometimes had men. And, I've had many people who have supported me along the way, and I stand on their shoulders. And then I've had many people who have used everything to tear me down. And honestly, in our culture and everything else that's going on, if we're going to be honest, it's hard enough at times just being a Black person. And then you add on the layer of where somebody's always going to nitpick that you're a woman. So it's like, you can't win. Like, I'm Black and then I'm a woman. And, you know, it just can become very frustrating and discouraging. So, you know, people do want to go to be in these environments for church, for community. And when your community doesn't appreciate or acknowledge you, it's incredibly discouraging. So I would say that there are probably women who want to be out there doing what Kayla and I are doing, but they don't see a way forward, or they don't feel that they're strong enough.
Wow.
One of the things, because of the experiences that I have gone through, just really authentically being myself. And one of my mentors, she told me, she said, keep wearing a dress. Like, don't, and she meant it like symbolically, you know, she said, own whatever you do in life going, you know, through this ministry process. She said, don't try to be like a man. Don't try to be something that you're not. Find who God has authentically made you to be. And honestly, when I have lived into that, and I do, it has now become solidified in me. I lean into it. I'm proud of who I am. Some days I wear heels. Most day I'm in scrubs and tennis shoes. But it is what it is, right? And so I have, and what I share with other women, regardless of what profession that you're in, be authentically yourself, be proud of who you are. And because of the things that I have experienced, and it sounds very similar to some of the hurtful events that Kayla has gone through as well too, I try very hard to uplift other women, to not tear down their physical appearance, because women are hardwired a little bit differently than men comparatively. And you know what it feels like when you get that compliment at work, at church, wherever, and you're like, hey girl, your hair's on point today, right? I was watching this joke by a late night comedian. He says, you know, people, they'll always sit there and say, oh, I keep it real. I just tell it like it is. He said, but if you notice, nothing positive ever comes after that. They're never like, oh, I keep it real. And I want to let you know, girl, your hair is amazing. You know, you rocking that outfit. And so I just sat there dying laughing, just because it is so true. We oftentimes will say, oh, I need to keep it real. I need to, you know, be all these things. But then nothing positive comes out. You know, there's not a positivity factor or contributor. And so I do believe that sometimes we need to share something with one another in absolute total love. And it needs to be some honest feedback, not a criticism or a tear down, but feedback. And but it needs to also come with like an invitation as well too, right? It's not like where you're just trying to rip people down and that type of thing. And I hope that as we move forward and we start having more conversations like these, that this next generation of pastors, because Kayla mentioned something about pastoring can oftentimes feel like a good old boys club. And that's true too. But there's also sometimes a good old girls club too.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're not part of that in group that has smiled down upon you and welcomed you in, you oftentimes feel like an outsider and you feel like you're different. And, you know, things that shouldn't become issues do. And so I try to be part of a mentality of welcoming. If a young woman comes and says, hey, this is what I want to do, build each other up, not tear each other down.
I love that.
Right. And sorry. I was about to say, and this is why we're doing this podcast, because I feel like women in ministry, and even we, as an intro, we spoke about Kamala Harris being the new VP, And we've talked in the past about women being so, like, it's almost in the culture that women are against each other, are being pit against each other for some,
Unspoken competition, I think.
yeah, competition. For some odd reason, there is always that spirit of competition, and some women feel threatened by another woman. And we've all heard experiences of like young actress who meet their idol, and all of a sudden they speak down on them. So I feel like there is really a culture within the ministry, but also in the women in general, that needs to change. And that's why we're having so important conversation. And just to switch gear a little bit, nothing is new under the sun, and we all know these stories in the Bible. Can we talk about different stories in the Bible when women were the central part of those stories that sometimes are being put aside a little bit also? And also, even within our religion as Seventh-day Adventists, has how women's work has been so important. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Yes.
Go ahead, Kayla. You start off.
I spoke last time. I spoke for a long time. So I'll follow whatever you say.
Oh, okay then. So within the history of as we look at women's roles in Scripture, right?
Right.
And I don't want to. I love history, so I don't want to bore anyone. And I love biblical history as well too, because it's rooted in a culture. So when we come to Scripture, we see that it is predominantly, once again, a male-oriented environment. But, and personally, what I have not seen is God or Jesus during his earthly ministry scoot women to the side. So we have the well-known biblical Old Testament biblical examples of you had Deborah, and you had other judges who were women, and their roles and that type of thing, and they played significant. They were significant players. And then we, kind of scoot forward to the New Testament, and what we see is Jesus is constantly involving women. He's involving the marginalized. And if we're to be quite honest, he involved marginalized men.
True. And I'm going to probably misquote the verse because I've read it in French multiple times and in English, maybe not as much. But in the Bible, it says when Jesus spoke to Martha, he told her that, hey, you should not be in the kitchen. I'm just paraphrasing. You should not be in the kitchen right now. You should be listening to me. So obviously the work of a woman is not always in the kitchen. And as we're speaking about the role of women in specifically in our sphere as Adventists and as Seventh-day Adventists, we have a woman that is like, after the Bible, it's her. We can agree on that. When we speak about Ellen G. White being such a big figure in our sphere, and also having so many women in our church, we are like the majority. We make the majority of this church. So I feel like it's so important to have representation of who we are, because we are the majority. So I don't believe that women should be only in one box. I think that it's important to have representation of women also on the pulpit. And sometimes it's hard to reconcile those two facts, that we have so many women, that Ellen G. White is almost, for some people, as important as the Bible, and still have that kind of like proportion of like women being in ministry. How do you reconcile those two facts?
I would say in a nutshell. Oh, sorry. I would say this in a nutshell, and then Kayla, you take it away. The irony, right? Just the irony of that. And then it goes back to, it's a spiritual issue, because the same people who I have found hold up Ellen White above the Bible, which nothing is above scripture.
Mm-hmm.
They're the same ones that are telling me that I shouldn't be doing this, actually.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells me automatically this is a spiritual warfare that you are having, that you tried to bring to me, and I'm going to pray for you, because there's nothing that I can say or do at this point to try to convince you unless the Lord hasn't already opened your heart to have a conversation of awareness and being informed.
I agree, but I think we also have to be, I also have to be kind, in the sense where some people, it's just the cultural background. And when you was raised for so long, you've been almost brainwashed that, like, I'm from Paris, but my background is Haiti. And for Haitian, it's just, I know it's really difficult. That's why when Kayla will say that they will maybe call me preacher, they will be happy that you have a good message. But the idea of, for you, not every Haitian church, but I know in the culture it's so ingrained that the woman and the pastor, is so difficult for them to make that connection. That sometimes we also have to have the, and I like that, despite when you said, ladies, earlier, that it's just sometimes it's just not your battle to fight. I'm not going to change a whole culture. If that's what you think, that's what you think.
But what you're speaking to is also, culture is huge, right?
Yes.
And so we have to acknowledge the role that our cultural environments have contributed to our ways of thinking and perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, some have just never seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they see it, they're like, well, I hadn't seen it, but it doesn't mean I'm opposed to it. But they'll at least give the ability to accept and process, right? And to like have a discussion on it. Then there are some that they just want to put cotton in their ears and say, don't talk to me about it. And they don't want to be open. So that's what I'm speaking to, is I'm not going to get in but if it's somebody who's genuinely asking, like, hey, I've never seen this before. I get it all the time in the hospital. I work with predominantly women, and they're like, I've never seen a female chaplain before. I'm the first at my hospital. Ooh. And they're like, so I'm the first woman, I'm a Black woman. And they're like, I've never, so there's curiosity with it. And they're like, oh, I want to, like, can you tell me more about this? Because in my church, from my background, that's a no-no. So I didn't know this was possible. That I can have a conversation with. But when it's just like you just have closed yourself off, I don't engage in those conversations.
Very good point.
Yeah. Kayla, I'm itching to hear your thoughts, love. I can see your brain working overtime, and I want to hear it.
It's like, you are telling me you want to change the mind of people, but you keep crippling the same generation that won't accept us. How about if you can, as a conference, because mind you, this starts a lot higher than where Taylor and I are. This is above. The same people who implement EGW in every single newsletter when a racial situation happens, when Andrews or when Southern decides to make racial slurs or videos about how Black students are monkeys. These same people who want to quote EGW all over the place are the same ones who tell us that Ellen G. White is a person we should be looking to, but yet when you have women who could be like her, you don't want to hire them, because it just doesn't sit well with what you know. EGW, first and foremost, this is no shade. This is not me trying to be funny. She did not recognize herself as a pastor or a preacher for that. She was just a woman who got a lot of prophetic messages and dreams, and she calls herself a prophet. But I just want to just clarify for the whole Adventist denomination, what is a prophet? A prophet is somebody who recognizes that they have a prophetic gift, which Adventists as a whole don't recognize prophetic gifts. speaking in tongues, laying of hands, healing, da 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 da. So how can you tell me your main leader is a prophet, but yet you won't even allow women to preach, and you don't even talk about the laying of hands or other prophetic gifts? If you believe in having a prophet, where are your other prophets in your denomination? There are none. And already at the top tier, that's my red flag, because I'm just like, so you have something you don't believe in and you don't want to duplicate more of them, but you believe in it. So this is not clear. Then as we move further down the line, we have you not wanting to hire women because it does not sit well with the generations that still don't believe drums belong in a church.
Mm.
And it's like, so we're still saying we're waiting on God, but then we're waiting on people and man to accept women. We're still waiting on them because it's your board that doesn't want women. And
Mhm.
so, yes, Love Me, as you said before about Haitians and things like that. I know that the South Florida, as we know, are full with even more Haitians than Orlando area is.
Mhm.
And they will not accept having a female pastor. The Jamaican churches are not accepting having female pastor. They will not. All the Caribbean churches have rebutted and fought against it. And it's just like, and so Taylor said, if you see it more often, but guess what? They won't let us be seen more often because they're limiting us to Women's Day programs, Mother's Day, Children's Day events, anything that has nothing to do with the rest of, like, we are allowed like what, 12 days out of 365.
Mhm.
How are we supposed to be progressing in this season? Like, how are we supposed to be changing? We have Kamala Harris, but yet you guys won't let me preach for any other day that's not women's ministry. Like, we have Kamala Harris, but yet you won't acknowledge me as preacher or pastor or anything that has the significance to the degrees I've earned. So when it comes to recognizing or accepting us women in there, yes, there's a generation of them who do, but the vast majority of those who don't is so large because they are coddled and allowed not to accept us.
I think that was exactly where my mind's going, because we see the problem. We see that even though women have biblically been amazing, it was a woman that first saw Jesus. It was, it was women who anointed him for his crucifixion, basically, washed his feet and all of this. Women have always strategically had churches in their homes, ministered. So there's no doubt and there's no denying that a woman's role in ministry is important. And to that point, what I guess my question would be, what are some meaningful things that we can do? Because we are the church. We have leaders erected over us, but we are the church. So my question is, women, ladies, what do you think are some things that we can do as grassroots members of the church to help march toward change? Because we need to have change. And I'll tell you where I'm coming from with that thought too. I'm not trying to bring up any additional scummy type conversations that happen within our church, because we know there's been a rise and all of that coming out now. But representation matters. A lot of times you have broken little girls who come to the religious spiritual leader for guidance. And it would be good to have a woman be there for her instead of always having a man who sometimes has his own battles that he's fighting against and takes advantage of that. So I think of so many different scenarios of where women in ministry are needed. So I guess going back to the initial question, what are some things, Kayla, if you want to go first, that you think we can, as a church, do to help march toward getting rid of, I really want to hire you, but my church don't like you?
Okay, so I mean, we can do more than teach and look good and sit at the front and be the amen corner. We are more than that, right? So I'm implementing us more throughout the year. When you can look at your church calendar, your church schedule, and you see that the only times you have a female preacher is for Mother's Day, Women's Day, something else has to do with women, maybe October because of miscarriage and infant loss awareness, and maybe more than domestic abuse month as well. That's also in October. When you look at our calendar and tell me you can see more than that, then you guys are in a good place. But if you only see women preaching 4 times out the year for your church, there are more places where we can be implemented. And it's different times throughout the month. Rotate us. Let your church see us more. Let them see a female face. Let them see different colors of female faces.
Right.
Let them see different age ranges. Because it's crazy when I go to places and they look at me like, who's the preacher? And I'm like, me. And they're like, no, really, where is the preacher? Like, you're too young to preach. Or what are you going to possibly teach us? Give me different age range. Put a little 10-year-old up there. Put a little 15. Put a little 22. Give all the rainbow. Give us all the greatness of women. Put up teachers up there. You don't have to be a preacher. Put up a lawyer up there. Whoever can speak on topics. It's not even, it's the fact that we can. I don't need the degree necessary. It's the fact that I can speak on this. And all three of you hosts, as educated, beautiful, melanated women, you all have backgrounds in different things. You speak. Do host a night where you talk about something. Let your church see you more often because you do things like this. Maybe even host a Sabbath or a Friday night or morning or Sabbath morning where you do this for your church and you advertise it. Let people see that we are women and we are unashamed and unafraid and unapologetic. You gotta do all three of those. And we are doing it because people, it's like when you say preacher, then you got to look for a specific type. Then you got to look for the woman who's like 45, 50, who's been preaching for like 25 years. It's like, no, get her too, but she can't be the only face your church sees. Like, we need all of them. Okay, that's all I gotta say.
I love that. I love that. Taylor, I guess my question to you, switching questions, what do you say to a young girl who really, like Kayla, is feeling very heavily the prompting of God over her life, but she just doesn't know. She just doesn't know if this is the right space for her. She's grown up maybe in our churches where she's heard that a woman's role is basically just to be in the pews. She can lead ministries. Maybe she can be choir director, music director. Maybe she can be the church clerk. But honey, that's as far as you're gonna go. What do you say to a little girl like that who would come to you for guidance?
That outside of my family that was incredibly supportive and nurturing, I was that little girl that was told, and it's not always explicitly told, you can only go so far, but it is the unspoken things that are said. And so what I would tell that little girl, I've been you. I know what that feels like. And if you trust that God is calling you and you continue to pray about this, then I do believe I've experienced it in my life. It sounds like Kayla has experienced it too. God brings people to you and to your path. And sometimes they might not always be who you think, like, or who you anticipate. And then be authentically yourself, because if you pretend to be somebody else, if you pretend to try to preach like a man, if you try to pretend to lead, in a way that's not authentically you, where you embrace who you are created to be, it's going to be more difficult because you're always pretending. You're always, trying to put up like a facade. So be authentically who you are. And it's going to be one step at a time.
Only because, like Taylor said, I've been that little girl too. What do? I feel like this has, I want to be called to ministry, but I don't know where, what. I tell her, find your voice. Find your voice. Don't try and sound like anybody. Like I said, growing up, I didn't see any women. So I had to go to YouTube to find preachers, just female preachers, didn't matter what denomination. And when I
Mhm.
saw them, like Priscilla Shire and others, and like Sarah Jakes Roberts, I was like, wow, they're pretty and they preach like
Mhm.
women, you know, they weren't masculine or they weren't trying to be men. And it's just like, find your voice. What do you sound like? And enjoy that. Are you a talker? Are you a conversationalist? Do you preach like you're having a conversation with somebody? Are you more passionate? Do you yell a little bit? Do you get a little down in there? Whatever it is, love what you do and who you sound like, and then run with it. And then don't try and sound like anybody else. And also, just loving you, and not doing the comparison game, because it gets really crazy out there. It does. And if you can, because I did not for years, if you can find a woman that will pour into you, and if you can't find a woman, find a man, but you need to find somebody. But I will say having a female mentor is very important, because I'm still searching for mine. And
Mhm.
somebody who will pour into you and not make you have to fight all your life color purple, okay? Because it's not it. Like,
Mm-mm.
this is not it. Like, we should not be trying to make the next generation have to struggle like we did. I should be trying to help you. So, girl, you never have to break a sweat doing this. Okay, just love on you. So I'd tell her all those things. Just make sure you find your voice, find your person who pours into you, and love on yourself if you can't find one, because you and your God time is what makes you. That's what
Mhm.
helped mold and make me. So those would be my initial words of wisdom for her.
Thank you so
Thank you
very much.
so much. You guys have been so transparent. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing your struggle, the challenge that you faces, but we also see your fortitude, how you keep going, pushing forward. And that was very inspiring. And I
Mm,
hope that our audience will be encouraged by your journeys as a beautiful woman in ministry. Thank
mhm.
you.
That's
And
it.
Right.
that's it. Thank you so much, ladies.
Yeah.
And
So much.
and
And I
Thank
think we can
you.
take for every, it's not only in ministry, I think that we can agree to extend
Yes,
that to every area of life, that women, we really need to create this sisterhood and
yes.
this bond that we need to move forward. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time and your wisdom.
you
you
so much.
both were amazing. We thank you, like both Love Min and Marilyn said. We appreciate you. We appreciate your vulnerability. We appreciate you just sharing your heart, sharing some of the highs, some of the lows, and giving us something to hope for every little girl, primarily as it relates to ministry, who feels that God has called her but doesn't quite know what that will look like. Thank you so much for setting yourselves as examples for that. In the comment section, we have not forgotten about you. Please be sure to let us know what your thoughts are as it relates to women in ministry. Perhaps you grew up hearing some of these little biases that we've discussed. We hope you'll join us in being committed to all humanity having a seat at the table, because we have a great work to do, guys, and there is room at the table for all of us. If this was something that you enjoyed, we hope that you will go ahead and hit the like. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you're always in the know when we have new content coming. I'm Renee. We were joined by Kayla and Taylor, with our usual and most amazing co-hosts, Marilyn and Loveman. Together, we are She Who Speaks. And until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Bye-bye.
Bye.